Veterans Affairs, pursuant to Standing Order 1082 and the motion adopted on Monday, October 3rd, 2022, the committee is resuming its study on the experience of women's veterans. En ce qui concerne l'interprétation,
concerning interpretation, you could choose French, English, or the floor for those who are here. Even though this room has a great system, it's possible for us to have feedback, and this could be very dangerous for interpreters and cause serious injuries. The most frequent cause of feedback is a headset worn too close to the microphone. So we are asking all participants to be very careful when handling their earpieces. And I would like to call on participants to make sure that they are speaking straight into the assigned microphone and to avoid manipulating the earpieces. Let me also remind you that comments must go through the chair. And in accordance to our routine motion, since we have witnesses and members online, connection tests have been successfully done before the meeting. Trigger warning. Before we welcome our witnesses, I would like to provide this trigger warning. We may be discussing experiences related to general health and mental health. This may be triggering to viewers, members here, or staff with similar experiences. If you feel distressed or need help, please advise the clerk.
Before we welcome our witnesses...
Point of order.
Yes.
There's someone taking pictures in the middle of committee, and I was understanding that we're not allowed to take pictures during committee.
Yeah, that's correct. No, you're not allowed to, sir, to... Yeah.
Well, you're a rookie. You don't like that.
Well, I thought you guys were FaceTiming and stuff, so that's where we got confused.
Yeah, okay, understand. Thank you. So, before we welcome our witnesses, I would like to provide this trigger warning. We may be discussing experiences related to general health and mental health. This may be triggering to viewers, members, or staff with similar experiences. If you feel distressed or need help, please advise the clerk. I'd like to inform you also that we have the witnesses with us for 2 hours, so we're going to take a short break at some time, a 5 minutes break. So just to let you know. Et maintenant, our witnesses for today are, as an individual, we have Marie-Ève Doucet, non-destructive testing technician by video conference. Welcome. Madame Jennifer Smith, veteran. Stephanie Von Latke, full professor, Queen University, Canada Research Chair in Gender, Security, and the Armed Forces. The Queenism Foundation, we have Dr. Remington Nevin, right, Executive Director. So you will have each, yes, exactly, 5 minutes for your opening statement. And maybe I'm going to start by video conference. I'd like to invite Madame Marie-Ève Doucet to start. You have 5 minutes for your opening statement. Please open your mic and start.
Good day. My name is Marie-Ève Doucet. I'm 42 years old. I presently live in Chicoutimi, Quebec, with my 10-year-old special needs son and my husband who's still serving. I have accumulated over 20 years of service on the CF-18 Hornet as both aviation and non-destructive testing technician. I was medically released in 2021 from Bagotville, Quebec. I would like to focus our discussion today on my service-related exposure to hazardous chemicals. I believe the chemicals I was exposed to during my career not only caused my medical release and my poor health today, but were also the cause of the ongoing problems with my son. In 2018, I was diagnosed with a grade 2 pineocytoma, a tumor of the pineal gland. In 2020, that tumor spread from my brain to my spinal cord. I have had already extensive surgery and maximal radiation treatments. Due to the ongoing progression of my cancer, I recently started begin chemotherapy treatments. I thank the committee for giving me the opportunity to speak. I don't know for how much longer I will be able to continue to advocate for myself on these important issues that I know also impact other women in the military, especially from my trade. You probably have never heard of my type of brain cancer before. It's a very rare and unusual condition, making up less than 1% of all brain cancers. What is known about it suggests that this type of cancer tends to be due to one of two things, either genetics or occupational and environmental exposures. Cancer of any kind does not run my family. I therefore have no evidence of any predisposing genetics for this cancer or any other cancers. This leaves us with the logical alternative that after 20 years of significant exposure to multiple carcinogenic chemicals and ultrafine particles, which are known to be negatively affect the central nervous system, that it was my workplace in the military that aggravated, if not directly caused, my present cancer and also negatively affected my unborn son during my workplace pregnancy. CAF does not presently keep a list of our workplace chemical exposure in our medical files. I think they should. Maybe then, when I filed a VAC claim for brain cancer on March 3rd, 2021, I wouldn't have received a refusal decision on March 24th, a mere 3 weeks later due to lack of proof of my medical condition being related to over 2 decades of chemical exposure of my workplaces. For my appeal, I was informed that I had to provide them with information which was impossible for me to obtain before I could move forward. So like so many other veterans before me and after me, I was caught in a catch-22 situation. There was no way for me to win. I had to abandon my appeal. Demanding the impacted veteran to provide the research proof for determining a cancer's original cause, as requested by VAC, is an unfair expectation or ask. I also do believe that women veterans are disproportionately burdened by this systemic unfairness, as the entire adjudication system was set up for men and to support men. Quite understandably, the foundational research for military-related chemical safety and harm has been done on men. There is still little to no government-sponsored research on how women may, if at all, present medically in different ways than men after having workplace chemical exposures. Even though I was medically removed from continued work directly on aircraft while pregnant, I was still to continue working inside that same aircraft hangar with constant exposure to many known occupational hazards, including jet fuel fumes, ultrafine air particles, noise and vibration. Once again, I have absolutely no genetic predisposition to neurodevelopmental or any other disease in my family. My child was one and the only one in my family to be born with issues. The pediatrician diagnosed him with autistic-like socialization and communication challenge and dyspraxia, a condition impacting his motor skill, coordination, overall development, and overall development. Most of the cost of his ongoing therapy in the present has come from our own pocket. I will always wonder if my son's issue are from the chemicals and ultrafine particles exposure I was ordered to sustain while being pregnant. Moving forward, I asked the committee to recommend that all reasonable sustained chemical exposure in military women causing even plausibly related medical condition to be presumptively approved as service-related. I asked the committee to recommend this proactive approach until such time that government has a strategic military and veteran women-specific research plan in place. Such a research plan would hopefully be able to once and for all prove the workplace safety of these military-specific roles and environments versus expecting the impacted veteran to individually prove their harm. I also request the committee to recommend that DND, CAF, and VAC come together and to investigate the possibility of military women's workplace hazard exposure causing direct harm to their offsprings. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Madame Doucet.
Thank you very much, Madame Doucet. Thank you for your testimony. I wish you great courage.
Jennifer Smith, veteran, for 5 minutes, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and the committee. It's a privilege to be here today, and I thank you for this opportunity. My name is Jennifer Smith, and I'm 52 years old. I present here today as an individual, one without rank, without a retired title, medals, or other special commendations. I identify solely as a woman veteran, a distinction that's as complex as it is seemingly simple. Being forced to escape CAF is a necessity of survival. The term veteran is a title that I struggle to connect to or find any pride or honor in. In 1990, I was just 18 years old. I was healthy, vibrant, and had a promising athletic career ahead of me, but I chose to serve my country. I started regular force basic training with CAF, and I was at CFB Cornwallis. I was one of only 7 women in a platoon with nearly 100 men. Sexual harassment by male recruits and instructors was daily, including dehumanizing jokes, sexual gestures, lewd sexual comments, and my bras and underwear would be displayed in front of the platoon, run up the flagpole, and out the barracks windows. This pattern of sexual harassment persisted through basic training and continued into my Naval QL3 trade training, where I was singled out as, again, the only female in the group. During my time in the military, I was repeatedly physically and sexually assaulted, including being raped by a drill instructor at basic, gang raped in barracks by other male recruits, sexual assault during a dental procedure by the military dentist. I was a Navy Hard C combat trade recruit, and this was at a time when these occupations had just been opened to women, and I was terrorized in that trade. I was never safe and had a string of death threats against me, because I was a woman. Prior to my Atlantic Fleet posting, I was taken by multiple assailants, all military members, blindfolded, tied up, and forcibly confined for what I believe was 3 days. I was stripped naked, deprived of sleep, repeatedly raped, sodomized, waterboarded, and submerged in ice water. During this ordeal, I was repeatedly told that females are not wanted aboard a warship and that I had better figure out a way to quit the military if I wanted to live. They stuck a bayonet into my chin and told me how they would kill me, saying a sailor can slip and fall off the ship during night watch easily and silently. I left the military after 13 months under fear for my life. I was given a one-way ticket to my originating city and nothing else. No contacts, no supports, nothing. I had been dumped at an airport and abandoned to navigate a life that had been irreparably altered by the devastating violence I experienced in CAF. Although over 30 years ago, the brutal attacks, lack of safety, and constant psychological abuse has severely impacted all aspects of my life. I have severe and chronic PTSD and depression, chronic and severe pain due to physical injuries, chronic infections, sexual, urinary, and reproductive issues, and stomach and bowel conditions. I'm unable to function day to day and spend much of my time in my darkened bedroom, severely isolated and unable to look after even my most basic needs. I have been homeless for extended periods, multiple hospitalizations impacting being with my children, and I am alone as I am unable to feel safe in a relationship. Since connecting with VAC 5 years ago, I have not felt supported, understood, or heard by the VAC system. Because I left the CAF in 1991, my pension is at the lowest it can be, meaning I have ongoing financial hardship that will worsen as I get older. Because I live alone and have no family or spousal assistance, I do not qualify for benefits such as caregiver allowance or attendant care. When I was homeless, I couldn't receive many benefits and services because I didn't have a stable address. A repetitive pattern with VAC has been to ask for an updated assessment with a nurse or OT, have recommendations made, and then to have no follow-up. Months later, when I ask for the services I need, I'm told I need another assessment. The assessments are very difficult due to my trauma history, as each assessor comes into my ever-changing housing arrangement and asks questions about my history, even though the history and numerous assessments have already been completed. VAC has this information. I have yet to receive support to pay for a personal support worker to help me with basic tasks of life, for example, getting out of my bedroom, eating, showering. And I've been judged as difficult and uncooperative because I don't fit into the boxes that the VAC system expects. The details of my experience and the extent of the lack of support are difficult to describe in a short speech. I hope that what I've said has an impact. And based on my experiences, I have a few recommendations for VAC that can be addressed later in question. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, but thank you, Mrs. Smith. If you want it, if you are able to, you can tell us what are those recommendations. So I will allow you a few minutes to please.
Thank you, Chair. They're just brief, and again, feel free to ask me to expand on them if you like. I have many lived experience examples. One, I would increase benefits for women living alone who are often without a caregiver or family member. Update the claims process to better reflect women's physical health issues, including female-specific forms for sexual, urinary, and reproductive issues. I've included in evidence one of the medical questionnaires, and I can go into that further in question period. Especially train a group of case managers in regions of Canada who are knowledgeable of women's issues, including that of housing insecurity / homelessness and military sexual trauma. Create systemic changes to ensure that medical and psychosocial recommendations made to help women veterans are acknowledged and followed. And finally, invest in women veterans-specific research, preferably carried out by women veterans themselves. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. And Mrs. Jennifer, we are so sorry to hear the story that you go through. And it's need really a lot of courage to come and share that with us. Thank you so much. And now I'd like to invite Mrs. Stefanie von Latke for 5 minutes, please.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I also want to acknowledge the testimony of Madame Doucet and Madame Smith, and want to really thank them for their testimony. My research at Queen's on the topic of the study has focused on the differentiated impacts of military service on women and also on the military to civilian professional transition. So every year, thousands of service members leave the military, typically in their late 30s, to join the population of Canadian veterans. Almost 75,000 veterans are women, so over 16%, which mirrors their representation in the Canadian Armed Forces. Recognizing this, all programs in support of veterans should take into account the changing demographics of the Canadian veteran population. And this means a focus on the growing participation of women in the Canadian Armed Forces. Not only are there more and more women in the military, but since the late 1980s, they no longer face formal employment restrictions in the military and can compete for all roles, including combat roles. Their representation among regular force officers has even gone past the 20% mark. We have more women, yet the military is still struggling with gender integration. As my colleague Maya Eckler notes, tracking the proportion of women veterans is important, but tells us little about the specific challenges they encounter on the road to civilian life, as it overlooks gender norms and inequalities based on gender. It's important to draw this parallel between women in the armed forces and women veterans because the experience of women while in the military influences their experience as they transition to civilian life. As we focus on improving services and programs for veterans, I would invite us to think about the military to civilian transition as a distinct but related phase of the military career cycle. For example, when the federal government offers programs on mental and physical health, it is important to identify women's differentiated needs and how these needs may have been shaped by their experiences while in the military. For example, women are more often exposed to cumulative stressors over the course of their career, which may include intense operational experiences combined with sexual harassment and military sexual trauma, and separating from family as a primary caregiver. Some not-for-profit organizations have developed programs to support women military veterans and other marginalized groups who experience PTSD related to sexual trauma, deployment, and other causes. The government has recognized the importance of using a GBA plus and intersectional lens to identify areas of policy reform as the military responds to the recommendations in the Arbo report, as it aims to respond to unhealthy attrition in the CAF retention strategy, and increasingly as it designs veteran support programs. These approaches have even led to greater coordination between the Department of National Defense and Veterans Affairs, allowing service members to engage in longer-term preparation for transitioning to civilian life. But much more, of course, needs to be done. Efforts should continue to improve continuity between a life of service and a life after service, as well as public-facing efforts that recognize the changing demographic of veterans. A challenge with this kind of research continues to be the availability of data given the lack of gender-differentiated research on military to civilian professional transitions. The few Canadian studies that have been published are based on interviews and exit surveys done with female military personnel and are consistent with cross-national trends. They identify professional challenges that are specific to women who have reported that they never felt fully integrated into the military and that their ability to be promoted while in the military or their ability to find good jobs after leaving was hindered by the lack of experience brought on by exclusionary professional environment while serving. Even more generally, drawing from the evidence provided in exit surveys as members leave the military, the CAF retention strategy emphasizes that certain dissatisfiers associated with voluntary release may be more prevalent amongst women than men. The report cites the lack of fit with the military lifestyle, dissatisfaction with the advancement and promotion system, training and development requirements, as well as workload demands. The document recognizes that gender bias can negatively affect access to opportunities for leadership roles, career advancement, and the preponderance of women as role models or mentors to aspiring leaders within the CAF. This, in turn, has an influence on the well-being of serving members and newly releasing members, but also on the professional opportunities that come after a career in the military. In a co-authored article with Megan Shoemaker, we note that these experiences that women face while serving, from social isolation and stigmatization by their peers to outright harassment, are important to address for a successful military to civilian transition as they impact mental health. Moreover, part of service members' social networks carry over with them as veterans, which provides additional peer support during transition, yet women's experiences where professional exclusion and workplace harassment were the norm shed light into the difficulty of securing peer support both during and after service. My past research at Queen's on this topic through an initiative called the Gender Lab aimed to connect these dots between the professional experiences of women and men while in the military to their professional experiences after the military. It's the right thing to do. We need to stay focused on understanding how we can improve the well-being and transition of veterans, enhancing service provision in the process. Understanding that professional fulfillment contributes to mental health, there's also an opportunity to improve the employment prospects of veterans in a range of sectors, given that former military personnel represent a skilled, trained, and experienced labor force. Our research focused on doing an environmental scan of veteran services and programs, as well as to conduct interviews and focus groups with members of the armed forces who were considering leaving the military or who had recently released. In addition to the programs offered by Veterans Affairs, there are provincial-level services in healthcare and employment in both the public and private sectors, which are designed for veterans, as well as programs emerging from charities and the not-for-profit sector. A few findings to highlight from our research indicate that, given the diversity of veteran service providers, attempts at coordinating what is being offered to veterans, as well as identifying potential gaps, are essential. In one of our publications, we suggest that A collective impact model would be favorable to encourage collaboration across the different sectors and partners involved in veteran service provision. While the literature has recognized the importance of employment training to improve the labor force participation of veterans, we cannot just put the burden
Mrs. Van Vleck, in conclusion, please.
of transition on veterans. We can also work to better prepare employers for their integration into a new workplace culture. While programs that encourage the employment of veterans abound, so do harmful stereotypes about military service, which might impact the hiring prospects of integration of veterans in their new workplace. So I'll start there, but emphasizing that my last point is about also the broader cultural environment of society. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Van Vleck. And now I'd like to invite Dr. Remington Neven for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. My name is Dr. Remington Neven. I'm a former U.S. Army physician and preventive medicine officer, trained in epidemiology and drug safety at Johns Hopkins. And during my 10-year active duty military career, I conducted research and published extensively on various topics in military medicine, including mental health and malaria. I now serve as executive and medical director of the Quinism Foundation, a charitable organization that supports research and education on the adverse effects of the class of anti-malarial drugs known as quinolines, which includes the drug mefloquine or Lariam, which for many decades in Western militaries had been widely used to prevent malaria. Malaria is, of course, a mosquito-borne disease that can infect military personnel deployed to certain tropical areas, particularly in Africa and the Middle East, where many Canadian veterans have served in recent decades. And it is this issue that I wish to speak to today, the prevention of malaria and the use of anti-malarial drugs in military women, particularly those of childbearing age. This poses unique challenges, which in my opinion has not yet been adequately addressed by policy makers. And most of my testimony today is drawn from my chapter in the book Women at War, which discusses these issues in greater detail and which contains references for many of the statements I make. The primary point I make in this chapter, and which I wish to make to the committee today, is this. The widespread deployment of women of childbearing age calls into question Western military's traditional one-size-fits-all policies for the prevention of malaria. For historical reasons, most preventive anti-malarial drugs were tested predominantly among men, and therefore in many cases direct human safety and reproductive hazard data are not available to inform their rational use in women. For example, the Canadian product monograph for atovaquone proguanil, a popular anti-malarial drug marketed in Canada as a Malarone, notes that there are no studies in pregnant women and that the safety of the drug combination in pregnancy has not been established. Likewise, the Canadian product monograph for doxycycline, another popular anti-malarial drug, warns it should not be administered to pregnant women. And these warnings are particularly relevant in that U.S. military experience has shown women of childbearing age are at high risk of pregnancy during deployments, where the use of these or other drugs have typically been mandatory. For example, while in Afghanistan, I and a colleague, Jen Cassie, found that during an 8-month period in 2007, there were 49 pregnancies identified among 3,298 U.S. military women, which is equivalent to a rate of pregnancy of 22.3 per 1,000 women years, or over 2% of deployed women per year. And for various operational and personal reasons, many of these pregnancies were not diagnosed until well into the first trimester and occasionally well beyond. If the Canadian experience is similar, this means that some degree of unintentional and potentially prolonged fetal exposure will have occurred among Canadian military women to anti-malarial drugs and other preventive measures, such as insect repellents, with unknown reproductive toxicity. And in many cases, such potentially toxic exposure will have occurred as a direct result of traditional one-size-fits-all policies that mandated use of these measures under command direction. The deployment of large numbers of women of reproductive age and the risk of pregnancy that accompanies these deployments provides an opportunity for Western militaries to re-examine previous one-size-fits-all malaria prevention policies and to consider adoption of malaria prevention strategies that are customized to the individual. And as I describe in my book chapter, in many cases this can include a transition away from mandatory or command-directed use of antimalarials to an emphasis on, for example, mosquito avoidance measures alone. Such customized measures can reduce the risks potentially posed to the developing fetus while also reducing the risk that these measures may pose to the women service members themselves, such as we have seen, for example, with the mandatory or command-directed use of mefloquine. Mr. Chair, thank you very much for the opportunity to address the committee on these issues, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nevin, and thank you to all of you as witnesses. And now we're going to start the first round of questions of 6 minutes each. And I'd like to start with MP Kathy Rogenthal for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you so much, Chair, and thank you all for being here and for your bravery in presenting your circumstances. We have a lot of work to do at this committee, and you will make a significant difference to that, so thank you so much. My focus right now is with Dr. Nevin. In 2015, you wrote a research paper, Issues in the Prevention of Malaria Among Women at War, and I and my colleagues look forward to hearing your findings that can have significant implications, as we're hearing, on the health care of Canadian female military service members today. However, I think it's really important for the current members of this committee to also know the concerns of our armed forces with the anti-malarial drug mefloquine, which has been the required drug of first resort for Canadian Armed Forces members in the last 3 decades, both men and women. In 1992, on a deployment to Somalia, Canada's elite airborne paratroopers received the then unlicensed drug as a part of a drug study. Military personnel were told they must take the drug or face disciplinary actions. Very clear protocols were set forth, yet few, if any, were followed by either the DND or Health Canada. Although administered, no proper testing was done or results attained. January 93, Health Canada, in advance of its own research being completed, approved the drug for civilian use in Canada. 3 months later, a young Somalia boy is murdered on a Canadian base in Somalia. This event would later become known as the Somali Affair. After the 93 federal election, Jean Chrétien's Liberal Party initiated a highly visible inquiry. However, a year later in 94, just as data was being collected on the role mefloquine played in the event, the Chrétien government abruptly shut down the inquiry just ahead of the 1997 election. This report, the 1997 Somali Inquiry Report, should be read by all members of this committee. The abrupt shutdown was questioned in 1999 at the Standing Committee on Public Accounts when former MP John Cummings states that he was in personal possession of an October 97 departmental note to the Defence Minister advising the DND to mislead the Somali inquiry on the status of mefloquine and advising him to mislead the public as to where the DND got the drug. While the Liberal government continued its cover-up, ignoring its veterans while requiring service members to continue to take mefloquine, the U.S. military responded to the Fort Bragg murder-suicides of 2002, in which 4 military wives were killed, and 2 of the partners that killed them then committed suicide. There was research into the potential impact of mefloquine on those partners who were required to consume mefloquine while in Afghanistan. So, Dr. Nevin, I have 2 questions that I'll put together for you. What was the 2009 decision made by the U.S. military because of their research? And we know that many of our other allies were also using mefloquine at this time. And in response to the U.S. decision, I believe, they held inquiries of their own that responded to the concerns of their veterans. So just wondering if you're aware what other countries made changes to the use of this drug within their forces and what did they do specifically? So if you could succinctly respond to that. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, and I thank the member for the question. So the members, I believe, referring to the 2009 policy decision that was made by the U.S. Army. And I believe that was in response to some research that I had published that had demonstrated that the drug had been used improperly on a large scale, particularly in Afghanistan. The drug had been prescribed to service members, the growing number of service members with mental health contraindications. And I think the U.S. Army was quite happy to dispense with use of the drug. It had developed, by that point, plenty of experience with the drug's very unpleasant and dangerous adverse effects. And the rest of the U.S. military followed subsequently. By 2013, when the U.S. Food and Drug Administration had mandated a boxed warning on the mefloquine product insert. By that time, the U.S. military had issued a policy that mefloquine be essentially a drug of last resort only, and that the two drugs that I had referenced previously, atovaquone proguanil and doxycycline, be used primarily and in almost all circumstances. And I believe the Canadian military, by this point, had also moved away from mefloquine as a first-line drug, as did militaries around the world. So I recall when I was overseas, I spoke with some French officers, and this was in the mid-2000s, and they had long since abandoned use of mefloquine because of operational experience with very unpleasant side effects of some operational significance associated with the drug. Germany, I believe, completely banned use of the drug in their military around the time of our boxed warning. And essentially few countries, if any, make any significant use of mefloquine today. The drug remains on many formularies. It may be used by old-timers that have favorable experiences with the drug, but it would be very unusual for new troops to be issued mefloquine on deployments today.
Thank you very much. Dr. Nevin, it was your research that brought new hope to Canadian veterans and serving members who've been suffering with a physical brainstem injury due to mefloquine toxicity, while being told that their issues and prescribed treatments were due to PTSD. You testified at this committee on May 1st, 2019, along with several Canadian veterans injured by mefloquine, contributing to our study and our report on the effects of mefloquine use among Canadian veterans. And of course, that report in the 42nd Parliament is available, report number 14. And the Conservative Party of Canada also submitted a supplementary report. Can you please share the eventual changes and your perspective on the changes Health Canada and the Surgeon General Commander, Canadian Armed Forces Health Services made in 2016 regarding the use of mefloquine in Canada after a significant amount of challenge at this committee and also from veterans?
Excuse me, Dr. Nevin, I only give you 20 seconds.
Okay, that's
sorry,
fine.
to get the response. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would say what's missing from those reports is an acknowledgement of the most important thing with mefloquine, and that is that the use of the drug must be discontinued at the onset of psychiatric symptoms. And it's this critical warning that I think has been ignored and still hasn't been acknowledged by Canadian officials.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And for the next questions, for 6 minutes, I'd like to invite MP Randip Sarai, please.
Thank you, Chair. I want to thank all the witnesses, specifically Ms. Doucette and Ms. Smith, who had to share their personal experiences, which we all understand are very difficult. My first question would be to Ms. Smith. It appears like we opened up the Canadian Armed Forces to women, and it was opened up, you were plopped in, and no support mechanisms, no systems, no checks on how biology would play into the factor, no complaint methods, a real cluster F, if you want to call it, part of my language, but I really feel for you, and what you went through in a very short period of time is unacceptable. You gave some great concrete recommendations of the 5 recommendations you gave. Can you maybe help us more, based on your own experience, how would specially trained case managers that specifically deal with sexual trauma, how would that be helpful? Also, the medical records, having to repeat the trauma over and over when you go to a different case manager, or file goes from CAF to VAC. If you can make some recommendations or some solid suggestions, that would be very helpful, so we can make those changes going forward.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. My goodness, there's a lot to unpack there. I mean, especially training case managers in military sexual trauma, and again, housing insecurity or homelessness. I think there's just this ingrained, maybe unaware bias that presupposes that women they have spouses, they have support systems in place. So, I mean, with that not being the case, and having case managers that aren't coming into aren't meeting the veteran with these presupposed biases, I think would just help build rapport and trust between the case manager and the veteran. Because again, right, so many veterans, and myself included, it just doesn't get heard at all. And in fact, if I can just talk about homelessness, I had a case manager when I had repeatedly said, I am homeless. And again, let's expand that to be a more inclusive definition and saying housing insecure, because women veterans, as we know, do exist. They are not invisible. They are out there. They do present in a much different way than we're typically led to believe. So couch surfing in different shelters, maybe. But, sorry, I lost a bit of a track there. But just having people aware of those differences. Sorry, I remember what I was going to say. I had a case manager that says, well, VAC doesn't have a housing mandate, just look on Kijiji. And that was as far as I got with that. And so I skipped around from couch to short-term Airbnbs to in my car, and again, being denied services because I didn't have a fixed address. So I know that maybe that doesn't necessarily answer that question directly, but just more awareness and more specialty training. I mean, these are specific topics, right?
Sure. No, I appreciate that. And also in terms of your medical records or the previous records, any suggestions on that, if you can elaborate on how it would be better? Because, we'll be told one thing by someone else, but somebody who's actually lived through that, of how they transfer from case manager to case manager or from CAF to VAC.
Right. So I've moved around. Actually, I've had several case managers, 5 different case managers in the province of Ontario. And that can take months to be, like even going from Toronto office to Ottawa took 6 months, and I had no case manager. So that means no medications. So there's no continuity of care. Finding another doctor, case managers get reports, but they want to do it all again, right? So tell me the story again, even though they have all the reports and all the information. And it's gone in, it's all filled out on your claim forms too. So that information is there. It seems a little lazy just to keep depending on and burdening the veteran to rehash these traumatic things over and over again instead of doing their homework. And, the information is there, they have it. And I would recommend, if they have additional questions, they feel like maybe one of their questions wasn't answered enough, then they could maybe ask for the veteran to elaborate on that instead of, the latter. Sorry.
And
Thank you,
just
Chair.
lastly, real quickly, because of my time, if you can, and on terms of you said something about women-led, you would like to have, is that a group to deal with women veterans to lead a team? If you can just quickly in 30 seconds.
I think that if you want to have roundtables on women veterans, you have to include these people who are most impacted, right? And so you need the lived experience of women veterans during these discussions. And I've been talking about women veterans homelessness for over 5 years now, since I've been a VAC client, talking to the veteran ombudsman, talking to various nonprofit organizations, talking to the City of Ottawa housing, social housing department. And they tell me it doesn't exist or we don't have a mandate. And in those 5 years, I have not been contacted once for a roundtable. Nobody's reached out to me to ask me about my lived experience. Instead, they have veterans on their roundtables. They're women veterans, but they don't have the lived experience of the topic at hand.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sarai. And to all witnesses, if you have additional information, feel free to send it to the clerk of the committee. Et maintenant, j'aimerais inviter Monsieur Luc.
Now call on Mr. Luc Désiré to take the floor for the next 6 minutes. Good afternoon, colleagues. Thank you, witnesses. I hesitate to say this, but nevertheless, thank you for your service, Madam Smith, Madam Doucette. Madam Smith, you have shown exceptional resilience. I have great empathy for what you told us. I found all that very troubling, and I'm somewhat ashamed for being a male like those who hurt you that way. You are brave, as the chairperson said, and I feel uneasy asking you questions. Did you lodge a complaint? Did you sue?
I've given this information to several, I spoke about it in federal court. I've given this information to many high-ranking officials. I've even provided the names of some of my attackers, as well as pictures. And again, I've never been offered the opportunity. Still don't know what avenue I have to go forward with this. You know, I've told, write it down in a claim form, but I feel that this goes beyond that. This is criminal activity, and I know who did it. I know some of the people that did it, and I'm just wondering why no one has come to me again, reaching out to me. I've given the information. Do I want to go forward with that? Here are some options, and that's not happened. So I'm waiting still.
Est-ce que je dois comprendre que vous souhaiteriez...
Should I take it that you'd like to sue for all those assaults?
C'est pas peut-être un problème d'interprétation.
Maybe there was a problem of interpretation. The question was, do you like to sue for those assaults? Should I take it that you would like to sue because of all those assaults?
I'm guessing the question is, would I like to make a complaint? Yes, I think that I would. I think it warrants it. Whether or not, I don't know what the outcome would be, but I stand for accountability. You know, accountability for people, accountability for institutions. So yes.
Pourquoi vous dites si je le pouvais?
Why do you say if I could?
S'il vous plaît.
Please repeat. That's okay. Is it not working? Please keep it on. Why did you say if I could? Maybe you're not on the right channel. Channel 1. Let me repeat.
Why?
Mais vous devriez entendre.
You should be able to hear the interpretation.
Why did I say if I could complain? Would I complain? Because it hasn't been made clear to me that I can. No one said, yes, you can. There is a mechanism, there is a path for you to go down if you want to make a complaint. Nobody said that, so I'm just assuming there isn't.
Mais vous êtes consciente...
You referred to a series of crimes and criminal gestures during your remarks. It's not because we are in the army that we are exempted. Well, that was not a question, but a comment. I believe that you made some request asking for compensation. You quickly referred to that. Compensation for the physical injury and the health issues that arose from your time in the army. How far have you gone with that compensation demand?
Okay. I've submitted so far 10 claims for physical injuries, along with my mental health, the PTSD. But it took 5 years for me to even know that I could claim for those other injuries. When I first presented to VAC and told them the story, as I have, and in much more detail. I mean, there's 40 pages of detail of 13 months of service. And VAC at no time said, oh, you must, here's an injury report, like file a claim for this. This is important. I found out by word of mouth years after the fact, so I'm still playing catch up to find out what I can even claim. And I thought that was the VAC responsibility.
Mais présentement, vous êtes consciente que...
But right now, you do know that you could file for claims, yes or no?
And I am doing that now. The point is...
Merci beaucoup.
Yeah.
Thank you. Madame Doucette, you told us about a very specific situation. You've established a link between the health issues of your child following pregnancy when you were exposed to some chemical products. When you were working at that hangar, did they propose transferring you to another location far away from those toxic chemicals? Answer: no, I didn't get any other option. Normally, a woman should be taken away from the floor during those circumstances. The entire ventilation system is throughout the hangar. Even when we're working upstairs in the offices, we can still smell the jet fuel. When you go into a hangar, sometimes the doors are opened to clear the air so that the fumes can go out, and it's closed just before receiving dignitaries. But when we enter the aircraft in the morning, the aircraft... In the aircrafts, we have what are referred to as jeep trays, containers to retain the fuel. In the morning, when we got there, those containers were full. So all that vapor rises up into the air. So even when you are walking upstairs, you are exposed. We were exposed. So we didn't really have much options. Maybe we could have been sent elsewhere to work in other units that were not directly connected to chemical products. I'm sure that they could have used us otherwise at the base than in the hangar. Thank you very much, Madame Doucet. Thank you, Mr. Desilets.
Minute of this round, I'd like to invite MP Rachel Blenay. She's on video conference. You have 6 minutes, please.
Well, thank you, Chair, and I really want to thank the folks that are here to testify. I really appreciate what you've shared with us, and particularly the very personal realities that you've had to share. My first question is for Ms. Doucette. So I understand that you were exposed to hazardous chemicals. I'm wondering if you were provided with any personal protective gear, or if there was any information shared with you about the hazardous chemicals and their impacts, or specifically the impacts of those chemicals on you while pregnant.
Yes, actually, I was the PP&E that we were provided with. Obviously, it's a men trade, so they were normally made for men, so it did not fit me properly. Like for example, the earring protection. Like, still to this day, I cannot fit one of those little earplugs in my ear. Like, my canals are way too small for it to fit, and we did not have access to properly, like, to air On n'avait pas accès à des bouchons faits sur mesure.
We did not have customized earplugs.
So we had to pay from our pockets for if we could afford them. And normally we're supposed to use things like double protection. So earplugs plus the shells. For the chemicals, like we used the gloves, like those little rubber gloves you can buy commercially. But on airplane, most of the time when you work, the fuel drips on your head, drips on you. So even if you wear gloves, you get covered. Fuel drips down your arms. And we had to put rags to keep it from running down inside our, armpits and on our chests. There's no protection made for that. Like the gloves won't keep the fuel from dripping on you. And unfortunately, it's just the way it is. Like you work above your head and it falls down. So there's no really any protection to have there except for glasses. Of course, like when you had like a supervisor that was on the ball would tell you where your eyewear, where are your glasses if you didn't wear them. But there's not much for fuel and particles like from jet exhaust fumes, heavy metals that they're filled with it. Like we don't have any mask. Like we're not provided for by any of this. When we walk from one hangar to the other hangar, walking behind like 6 jets that are running and just spitting heavy metals, like, and we walk right through it. So no, we had training. They would tell us that we're supposed to wear safety goggles, the gloves, but we were not really provided with things that would fit a woman or a small woman, and that would really work to protect us, I don't think.
Well, thank you for that. And I really appreciated your recommendation that all the chemicals that you are exposed to should be kept in your medical file so that there can be follow-up with the impacts of those chemicals on your body. So I'm definitely going to push for that recommendation. One of the things, though, that I've heard from other testimony is that there's no research done on service and pregnancy for women or women who want to become pregnant. So I'm just wondering if you feel that this needs to be a higher priority moving forward so that that documentation can happen at the CAF and then be able to transfer over to VAC so services meet the needs of women.
Yes, I do believe this is critical. Women will keep on getting pregnant, women in the military, like it's just a way of life. And if it affects our kids, like I would be curious to see if we compare the military population to the civilian population, how many kids do have like neurodevelopmental issues? Because I feel like it's the numbers are completely out of whack. I know so many people that do have kids that are military people that have kids with ADHDs and all kinds of neurological development issues, right? So as my kid does. And I don't see that in all my city friends. Like every once in a while you'll see one, but I think that there should be research made to compare how much of an impact it has on us.
Yeah, I really agree with that. If I could come to Ms. Smith, I only have a moment, but you talked about the importance of having a continuity of care. Could you expand on what that means for you and what that might look like?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question. Well, continuity of care really is important so that there aren't gaps in care, that the veteran feels supported as they move through their life. So whether they're having to relocate because of whatever, financial reasons, personal reasons, for me to have moved from Ottawa to Winnipeg, I was given a 3-month supply of medications and a finger crossing, well, hope that you get a case manager before that runs out. And that was even giving Winnipeg VAC a heads up, well, like 6 months ahead of me moving. I let them know, VAC, I'm coming, you know, please set up my files, etc. But yeah, really that continuity means that you are caring for the veteran and that you care what happens when they leave one office and they arrive in another one. And that's important. And if you're talking about trust, building trust and rapport, I think continuity of care is at the base of that.
Thank you, Ms. Bliney. And I'd like to welcome MP Sidhu on video conference, who replaced Mr. MP Brian May. And I propose that we suspend for 5 minutes, and so we can, you know, have a coffee and coming back. So, je suspends. Smith.
Je vais aller voir.
Oui. Nous reprenons la séance.
We are resuming our session. We will be starting right away with our second round of questions. I'll call on Madam Kathy Wagentel for the next 6 minutes.
Thank you so much, Chair. I do need to go back to Dr. Nevin, but first, Ms. Smith, I'm going to bring something up that I hope is okay with you from what I heard in your testimony. If you're not comfortable answering it, I understand. Okay, you talked about your experiences, and you alluded to the fact that the intention that you experienced was to force women out of the military, to not maintain through threats on your life and the abuse that you experienced. That seems to be an elephant in this room on the basis of the whole military sexual trauma issue, because D&D didn't see it as due to service. Am I?
Well, I can speak. I don't know what D&D was thinking. I know they, so there was the tribunal, the Human Rights Commission tribunal, right, had determined just months before actually I was aggressively recruited into the trade that I went into, although I wanted Navy. But so the tribunal said, yes, it's open to all women, all trades, combat trades. I chose the Navy, and I chose to be in a combat naval trade. And like I mentioned in my testimony, I was the only woman, the only female in that group to go through the training. My ship was the first mixed gender warship that to be deployed with the blanking on that acronym, but on NATO exercises. And so you really have to understand the Navy in particular is highly, they don't, particularly at that time, there was no way they accepted women going to sea on supply ships in supportive roles, but definitely not as a combat sailor. And there's a lot of superstitions, hundreds of years of superstitions that come into the Navy. And being out at sea, I mean, you're in international waters. In fact, we know recently, sadly, someone did fall off a ship. And no one knew until too late, so it does happen. But yes, 100%, being a woman was, yeah.
Thank you, I really appreciate it.
I hope that answered your question.
Well, the goal here is to change this culture, right?
Correct.
And we have to be direct about what it is that we actually have to change.
Absolutely.
So you're very brave, and thank you so much. Dr. Nevin, just briefly, I ended up with having to leave here shortly. That's the life of, you plan your steps and then somebody changes them for you. But can you just share specifically, your focus is on women serving in the military and the need for proper care for them, and specifically in regard to anti-malaria drugs. So just to broaden out your opening statement a little bit on what you see as the concerns and the needs within our military. I know that the U.S. is somewhat ahead of us on these things.
So, Mr. Chair, I thank the member for the question. As I mentioned in my opening brief, the deployment of large numbers of women of reproductive age, it provides an opportunity, but really it forces the issue. It forces, I think, militaries, or should force militaries to reconsider, if they haven't already, their previous one-size-fits-all policies, including for the mandatory command-directed administration of anti-malarial drugs. And just for some context, for example, in Somalia, the use of mefloquine was ordered, and there were, for example, formations where every service member would be observed to take the drug on a weekly basis. And of course, that sort of policy of mandatory command-directed administration of a drug that may have reproductive toxicity to female service members with undiagnosed pregnancy, simply not acceptable. And so the fact that we have large numbers of women now who are deploying to areas where we use antimalarials, I think forces militaries, or should force militaries, to reconsider these former strategies for malaria prevention. And it may be that antimalarials aren't required at all in certain deployments. It may be that alternative malaria prevention measures might be appropriate. But the most important thing among all these possibilities is that these be customized to the individual service member, that malaria prevention be considered a medical treatment just like any other medical treatment, and not a command-directed measure.
Thank you very much. And now for 5 minutes, I'd like to invite Honorable Caroline Bennett. Please, go ahead.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your testimony, and thank you, I think, to the veterans particularly. This has been really important to us, and I think we want to make sure that when you leave here that there's nothing that you wish you'd said that you could have said, or that as you leave, if there's things that you want to follow up with, that we would love to hear from you. I think in terms of prevention, that it seems that even as you were deployed, you didn't have the information as to what was expected, that it should be zero tolerance as to who you would go to if there was any incident. And then the same thing happened to you as a veteran, that you didn't know what actually the structure was about making things safe for all of you. And so I guess I hope that as we come up with the recommendations, that if you would help us with what would have been helpful when you were first deployed. I think we are worried that, as you say, whether it's international waters or whether it's in other countries, where's the enforcement that takes place? Sometimes the head, as we've heard from RCMP, sometimes it's the person who's the most in charge who's the perpetrator. So how do you know where to report? So I guess in other countries, and certainly what we're seeing, that as well as a case manager, there might be a peer support or a buddy to somebody trained to be able to partner even with new recruits or with people newly leaving the forces, and with proper training and all of that. Would you think that would be helpful if you'd been given a sort of a peer support person who could walk you through, particularly in that time when you were moving and didn't have a case manager? It seems that there could be still people who've been through it themselves could give you advice. I'm appalled that the meds stop when you change province. I mean, as a physician, I just can't believe that can happen. And I think what we've heard here is the idea of presumption is something that gives some dignity to the veteran, that of course the meds continue, of course things continue until there's a different assessment, but the assessment shouldn't be having to tell your story again and again and again, that you want people to read it. So I was just wondering if what you thought of that idea, but you certainly said in terms of roundtables. I think we've heard from another people that for the minister to have an advisory committee of women vets, we would, we would also love to hear that because you seem to be a case history of everything that went wrong in the system, that someone like you that really actually has told the story of a system that's failed you would be very helpful, I think, in terms of any minister pushing to do better.
No more time, Ms. Bennett. 1 minute and a half.
Yes, so I'm not quite sure what the question was, other than, I mean, really, gosh, I don't know.
Well, could a peer support person have helped?
Well, I mean, I've been asking for a personal support worker, which is essentially that. I've been, myself and my caregivers, from the day I became a VAC client and was assessed and all of that thing, so 2018, it's not been provided. VAC will not. They say they don't do that. They look at, well, maybe the community has some people, and that's out of pocket to the veteran, or maybe the regional health authority.
But you also didn't get help with housing. You also didn't, I mean.
Correct. Yes.
And because people are supposed to have a wife, you actually didn't have any extra support as a single woman.
No, and that's right. And actually, I have spoken to several people at VAC in administrative positions, and they have told me that the presumption is that the veteran has baked in informal supports. So any funding, such as VIP services or whatnot, is really just to be an addendum to that. So it's not actually to take or to pay for the services that the veteran needs. It's just like, well, if you need a little top up on what your spouse brings in, or if your kids can shovel the walk, this winter, then we can kind of give you a little bit more to top that up. But if you do not have those informal supports, which I have said to Veterans Affairs over and over, and so succinctly, in that I am 100% reliant on external paid services, and that still results in I'm not getting the services. And so I'm just marking time until I die, basically. I mean, it sounds dramatic, but it's true. That's the truth of it.
Thank you. Thank you. Now we're going to have two short interventions and for 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes each. Et j'aimerais inviter Monsieur Luc Desilets pour...
Mr. Luc Desilets, you have 2.5 minutes, please. Thank you, Chair. Madame Doucet, during your pregnancy, did you receive any support from the armed forces? Well, I was followed up by a military doctor. Specific support related to your pregnancy or delivery? No. I was considered ungrateful because when I was pregnant, I moved to Ottawa for a while. I had trouble consulting a doctor when I came to Ottawa, so I was not even able to do some tests because there was no follow-up. I fell in between the cracks. So for specific tests done during my pregnancy, no. When you gave birth to your child and you discovered some problems, was VAC able to help you or refer you to specialists? No. It was when my child was 2 or 3 that we realized that there were some neurological issues. When we moved here to Bagotville, from Bagotville, the pediatrician thought he was autistic. So some tests were done in the civilian system, but we received no support from veterans or from the military. Madam, I have some difficulty pronouncing your name. Madam Lati, I have a question for you. The case of Madam Smith, are these cases identified? Do you have statistics on such cases? The Canadian Armed Forces has started collecting that kind of data every 2 years recently, problems related to sexual misconduct. These things are being highlighted but have never been dealt with once and for all. So we've noted a failure at the level of military leadership with all the stories we have heard. So it's also a failure of leadership and of power. When we talk about sexual misconduct crisis, I think it's only the tip of the iceberg. It's the entire leadership of the military which is compromised. Another question. Madame Doucet talked about living with a child with special needs. The link she has established seems to arise from her case related to the armed forces. She believes that's the case. Have you carried out any studies which compares the civilian population with the military population going through such circumstances, delivering children with malformations and so on and so forth? I am not in the health field, so I don't have that information. But when it comes to cultural adaptation, moving from the military and into the civilian area, in the armed forces, people are accompanied, but when they get to civilian life, it's a whole new environment. People feel lost in the new context. And in addition to that, when they are facing with the kind of challenges that Madame Doucet and Madame Smith are going through, it's even more difficult to navigate. So there's a lack of support. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Miss Rachel Blinny, 2 minutes and a half, please.
Well, thank you, Chair. I appreciate that. If I could come back to Ms. Smith, I just think it is important that we go back to the housing insecurity that she talked about. We know that at this point, it's about 16.2% women who are serving our country. And yet on the other side, we're seeing 30% of veterans who are unhoused or in housing insecurity are women. So that's telling me that something's significantly not working on the VAC side that we need to address. So I'm just wondering if you could share with the committee a little bit about your difficulties in accessing services and connecting with VAC when you were in housing insecurity. If you could just explain where the gaps are so that we can start looking at how we can see that remedied.
Certainly. So as I had mentioned earlier, I had almost 30 years of experience without being a VAC client, not even knowing that VAC even was a thing, that existed. But once becoming a VAC client, I was housing insecure in all its forms. And again, talking with various nonprofits or VAC saying we don't have a housing mandate, look on Kijiji. Ottawa, City of Ottawa Social Housing said, well, there's a list. It's about 5,000 people long. So, but there's housing out there. She's looking on her laptop and says, yeah, there's tons of stuff that comes up. But again, not addressing things that someone with a trauma history, a veteran with a trauma history, would find these to be barriers to that housing, as well as the Veterans House Initiative. And while I applaud what they're doing, what they're attempting to do, when I spoke with the person in charge there when they were still fundraising, she had said that I had mentioned, is there any trauma awareness being built in? Like, how does that work? Because I see that you have 40 units, and yes, you're telling me that it's open to both men and women. Right away, I said, there's no way that myself as a woman veteran would even want to enter into that building. It's communal living. And if you look at the pictures, you can go online and see what this housing system looks like. And it really replicates almost exactly the environments in which many women, service women, were sexually assaulted. So just safety-wise, and then you think about, well, there's like basement laundry stuff, and then all the places where danger exists and danger lurks, and I don't think that they've got it quite right, and crossing fingers and hoping, well, we're all adults and we've all learned that now somehow that means that the housing is safe for women. And we do know that women veterans are choosing to live in their cars rather than apply to stay at a place like Veterans Housing Initiative. I think that's unfortunate and definitely needs to be worked on. I would recommend women-specific housing for veterans.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Smith. And now let's go to Mr. Dordell for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I too want to echo the comments for you being here today and telling your stories, horrific stories that, you just, it's sad. Basically, this study we've been working on for quite some time, which is long overdue, and a lot of it, in my mind, there's two parts of the study. There's one, Veterans Affairs and how we are treating you today, and then it seems from the CAF itself how you were treated prior to. So I think that there should almost be a study during that point. Like, would you think that there should be something going on in the department, like every year, to follow up a little bit with some of the stories that we're hearing? Because what we're doing here is sort of like dealing with it afterwards. Like, it'd be nice if you had that problem and issues that you had for your 13th month. If there was something at 6 months, you had something, or do you know what I'm saying? Like, the question to you, Ms. Smith.
Yes, I think so. I mean, certainly how they're doing it now is an improvement to how, when I released, it was, you got, like I said, one-way ticket and boom, I'm at the airport. Now what, at 19 years old and completely shattered. So, I mean, now with the introduction of transition services, I mean, CAF's recognized that this is helpful in preventing maybe and heading off some of those
A little earlier,
right? And identifying where problem areas might be. But to say, well, now you've finished up your transition services, everything should be fine, I think is naive.
Yeah.
And yeah, there should definitely be some follow-up, but meaningful follow-up. I mean, I myself, if I can use myself as an example again, I'm on a so-called 3-week rotation of being called by my VAC case manager for no other reason other than to make sure I'm still breathing. I'm still not getting services. I'm still not getting the supports. I still live in my room and struggle to eat or to shower, to do anything, and my quality of life is zero. I mean, I thought it was important to be here today, but it's really going to kick the hell out of me.
So,
right?
so one of the other questions or recommendations you had was to increase the benefits for women.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we have a housing problem, as you know, everywhere, but
Yeah.
Are we not sort of creating our own housing problem?
Who?
Or the government? Like, if the benefits, the increased benefits?
Well, yeah, as a single woman, I'm responsible for the entire burden of home ownership, or what that home maintenance. And as a disabled veteran, I don't have any assistance to help with that. And because I am single, I don't qualify for caregiver benefit, which is a tax-free monthly benefit that is very helpful for the people that do get it. Attendant care, same thing, I don't qualify for that. So, yeah, I think these benefits and these supports
changes for sure.
absolutely need to be
I just want to get one
reexamined.
more quick question, and if I can, do I have a little bit of time here? Okay, and I guess this question's actually for you, Dr. Vlatke and Halatki. When you said, which I thought was quite interesting, the reasons for volunteer leave between men and women. I don't know if you can elaborate that on a little bit more, because I think it seems that would be a fairly large issue that you'd want to look into. Why the volunteer leave and the difference?
Oh, no, that the reasons that were cited in the exit surveys, when we compare the women and the men respondents, tend to differ, and some it just stresses the importance of having a gender differentiated approach when we think about transition, so that when we are looking at the women veteran population, we take into account those cumulative stressors and the reasons that are more prevalent in that segment of the veteran population compared to men. And I think in the past, it's fair to say that veteran services, whether provided by VAC or kind of the third sector of not-for-profit organizations, has been designed by men for men and led to outcomes that are very suboptimal for women, just like the housing facilities that were described by Ms. Smith. So representation of women's voices and recognition of those experiences are critical right in the design phase of those support services.
And the other part, transition of veterans, the broader cultural environment of society, how can we change that?
Yeah, so the prevalence of stereotypes and tropes that prevail in society when it comes to the way that we perceive veterans. And so for women veterans, the way that might manifest itself is complete lack of recognition of service, because so awareness raising in the public-facing campaigns of Veterans Affairs is having more women represented, absolutely. When employers have preferential hiring programs for veterans, it's really socializing these programs with employers and employees to provide a welcoming environment and tailored onboarding tools also for veterans who will transition to a dramatically different employment space. So examples like that.
Thank you, Mrs. Von Latke. And now let's go to Mr. Casey for 5 minutes, please.
Chair, I'm going to stay with Dr. Von Latke to begin. We've heard some really compelling lived experience stories here today, and where you sit as the Canada Chair, Research Chair, Gender Security and Armed Forces, I can't help but to think that there must be something that you heard here today that you can say, this is where my research can help. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to start with the testimony of Ms. Doucette, and she identified very clearly a problem with the necessity or the difficulty of establishing causation to or connection to military service, and also the lack of research to allow her to make that connection, especially as it relates to the impact on her child. So can you speak to how your research can impact and help people with with that kind of a story?
So again, not being in the medical or health field, I want to point to research that's conducted by organizations like CIMVAR, the Canadian Institute for Military and Veteran Health Research, where...
Which is also based at Queen's?
It's based at Queen's. It provides national research opportunities. It's through a wide-ranging partnership. But I will say that when it comes to the cultural competency argument I made earlier, it also applies to healthcare providers. And so when you have a veteran patient coming to see healthcare providers in the civilian system, that familiarity with the veteran experience might not be there. So at Queen's and through the Gender Lab that I referenced earlier, for example, the work done by Dr. Lina Ntamsedo for instance, has developed tools for healthcare providers to develop that cultural competency to be able to interact with veteran patients through a gender-sensitive lens. So those types of approaches where you build tools to empower practitioners is consistent with the recommendations I said for that supportive environment for veterans, especially women veterans, when they're seeking support services. What I'll also say is that, through the research, we did an environmental scan of the types of services that were provided outside of VAC, because to me, there are obvious gaps, and I don't think that we can necessarily expect VAC to fill all of those gaps. It's not a realistic expectation, and so a lot of nonprofit organizations have popped up to fill those gaps, and it would be great if Veterans Affairs, for instance, had a really up-to-date directory by city, by region, where the service providers that have emerged, and for instance, through charities and the not-for-profit sectors, were listed so that this up-to-date information would be at your fingertips. And so those are the types of small adjustments that can maybe bridge some of those glaring gaps that have been made evident by the stories that were shared today.
Over to Ms. Smith's powerful testimony, and I'll ask you the same question there. I mean, she's touched on housing insecurity, military sexual trauma, the impossibility of transitioning when you're an island. How can your research impact people with that lived experience?
So I want to speak to the professional and social exclusion that women in the military have experienced that then carry over into their transition to civilian life. And so one thing that we have done at Queen's was to organize veteran transition workshops tailored for women, where not only the agenda of the workshop is co-developed with women veterans, but also our objective in hosting these workshops was also to create a peer support network so that women would be able to meet other women with similar experiences and break that cycle of social exclusion that they had experienced while in the military and most likely while transitioning. So hosting these veteran-focused workshops was one of the means through which we could translate the research that we do in a university setting in support of a community of women veterans. So we had a fairly localized workshops with women from Ottawa and Kingston and the nearby region.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kissy. So we have 10 minutes left, and we will have 2 interventions. But before, let me say welcome to MP Courik, who replaced MP Wagenthal, and 5 minutes for Mr. Fraser Tolmie, please.
Thank you, Chair, and I'd like to thank the witnesses for coming today and sharing, and some of the testimonies that we heard from the witnesses are very troubling and not easy to hear, and not easy to hear from this chair, and I'll maybe touch on that a little bit later on. Time and time again in this committee, we hear testimonies of witnesses, and time again we hear about the machine, about Veterans Affairs and the military, and it fails to support veterans needing care. And Ms. Smith, you mentioned this, care. Care for me implies feelings. It implies comfort. Care implies support. Care implies understanding. When I go into a doctor with symptoms, I'm working with them so that I can tell them what I am experiencing and to find out a course of action so that I can be healed. And it seems like when I hear testimonies from veterans like Ms. Doucette, that it's the cart before the horse. You're jumping through hoops, explaining and re-explaining, and proving and trying to prove why you aren't well and why you got sick instead of what is ailing veterans. And in my opinion, that's not care. Ms. Doucette you made a recommendation that anyone who has worked in the military with any forms of chemicals, those exposed to chemicals, VAC should recognize this as a cause of symptoms. Could you please expand on that? It is something that I believe that we should be supporting.
Well, it's because a lot of disease are not clear. The causes are not clear. So by having a list of everything we've been exposed to, and they should give the benefits of the doubt that being exposed to a list which is provided by trade maybe, because and since those chemicals evolve constantly, like there are chemicals that I was using when I joined that is not used anymore because it was just too dangerous, like fuel filled with benzene. Now the fuel is not as toxic as it was, but yet I was still exposed to it, but have no proof. So I don't know. It would make sense that we have something that we can go by to explain our diseases, and so many veterans are affected by weird diseases that it's hard not to make any link, and yet we can't prove it. So,
right, and that takes me back to that point of what I was saying was, you seem to have to explain the why, as opposed to what you've experienced. Is there any other areas of exposure that you think should be automatically recognized for someone that goes through VAC?
Exposure, well, yes, the mental aspect for sure. Like obviously being a woman, but 20 years ago joined the military, all of that aspect has to be. It was not necessarily easy. And there's also like the environmental, like airplane base, like Bagotville, Cold Lake, and so many other Air Force base that ultrafine particles affects not only us veterans and military, but also our families. So I think, yes, all that should be taken in consideration.
I know that I only have a minute left. Thank you, Chair, for letting me know that. Ms. Smith, I'm not sure if this format is the right format to hear your testimony, for us to only give you 5 minutes to be able to speak. And I know that this was very, very difficult for you, and it was very, very difficult for me and others around here. And I just wanted you to know that the chair has shared that if you need any support afterwards, that is a genuine comment that has been shared, and we do mean it. And so I want to say thank you very much for coming here and being brave and telling us what you went through. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tilmy, and thank you also to remind that to our witnesses, because we provide assistance, and even though someone who accompanying you or dog or traveling, so let us know, and we'll take care of that. Thank you. And for the last questions, and we'll invite MP Wilson Miao for 5 minutes, please.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I also like to thank all the witnesses for being here today, especially those who really have the courage to come and share your heartfelt life experience with us. It's very difficult, I feel, with this first ever study of women veterans in this committee, and especially difficult to hear so many stories that I believe there are more out there that we haven't here. And I think this is very important, especially also the week of, this week leading into our Remembrance Day. Through our previous studies, we heard, women feeling invisible. And now, we want more stories to be heard, especially to find out how we can actually improve our current VAC system and also in the military, because how are we supposed to recruit more, of those into the military to serve our country when we're hearing so many untold stories and traumas and consequences that is really hard, not just for everyone here in this committee, but also for those who are watching this, around Canada. And I also like to also thank all those guests being here, because it shows how important this study really is. And through you, Mr. Chair, I'd like to ask some question to Ms. Smith. I know in your remark, thank you again for sharing your experience, because I know it's very challenging and hard, and it takes a lot of bravery to share this, not just one time, right? Many times. And it caught my attention, like, how come right now those people those who hurt you are still, out there, not serving their criminal times. My question to you is, have you ever thought about coming forward and really put those who hurt you, in through our legal system?
Yes, thank you for the question. Yes, actually. I mean, this might also address some of what Monsieur Desailly had asked or was trying to ask me. At the time, there was no mechanism for me to make any sorts of complaints whatsoever. I mean, it was Wild West days. I mean, one of the members pointed out the Somalia affair. I mean, I was living through that kind of time, and it was not just happening in Somalia, it was happening on Canadian bases. It was nothing to show up to work with a black eye. Nobody asked any questions. It was don't ask, don't tell. And my chain of command was often some of my perpetrators. So, again, no way to make any kind of complaints that was going to be any way safe for me. I mean, I'm still nervous about my safety, and I do live in somewhat of an anonymity as a result of that. However,
and you mentioned you also got death threat by, if you decide to come forward.
Yes, well, I was tortured for 3 days and had a bayonet stuck in my chin. So absolutely, yes, there was no doubt in my mind they would have killed me if I went out on that deployment to the Gulf, if I sailed that day. And so I made a plea to the chaplain for a compassionate release. Got one and was honorably released. Since then, I mean, I've just been in survival. It's survival now. I thought that when I came forward to VAC with my claims and my experiences, that might cue somebody to say, well, this is unacceptable. Do you know who did this? In the cases that you do know who did this, here are some options, or would you like to proceed further? That was never the case, and I'm still confused about that, because I have spoken about these instances, these experiences in several arenas, and it's never been brought up to me. So I still don't know, like, where do I go? Do I go to honestly, I wouldn't know where to go with it.
So let's before we end today's committee, is there a way that we can help you to get the support you need so you can bring forward these injustice, right?
Well, I mean, I think I would ask you that question. Like, what can you do? And like, I've told you my experiences and not myself knowing where do I go with this if I wanted to see, whatever kind of justice done. I mean, you have to remember this is over 30 years ago. Some of my attackers are dead. Some of them have lived or have great careers and had second careers in the government. And, I don't know is the answer, unfortunately. I would say if you know what my next steps could be, then I welcome suggestions.
Well, I think this is also a good opportunity for us to find out, great recommendation or suggestion moving forward for those others that cannot come forward like yourself within a certain time frame to get those people behind bars.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you. As you understand, it's really tough to cut that conversation. It's really important. So even though myself, Mrs. Smith, I asked the analyst, what can we do in that situation? But we have to think about it to be able to help you in that situation. Alors, c'est là-dessus que prend fin.
Our meeting has come to an end. On behalf of all members of the committee and on my own behalf, I would like to thank you for your testimonies. With us today, as an individual, we have Madame Marie-Ève Doucet, non-destructive testing technician appearing via video conference. Thank you for your intervention. With us as well is Ms. Jennifer Smith, a veteran. And we also have Stephanie Van Latke, full professor, Queen's University, Canada Research Chair in Gender Security and the Armed Forces. And from the Queenism Foundation, Dr. Remington Nevin, Executive Director.
Yesterday, I'm pretty sure that we will participate in Remembrance Day to honor veterans. So me too, I'll be there. So I'd like to know if the committee would like to adjourn. No problem. So thank you to translators, staff, and clerk and analystes. Et voilà, la séance est ajournée.
Meeting is adjourned.